Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says the United States is canceling a treaty with Iran signed in 1955. He says the move is decades overdue, adding Iran is using it for their own political purposes. Correspondent Wyatt Goolsby has more from the State Department. Good evening, Wyatt.
Good evening, Lauren. Secretary Pompeo's announcement comes just hours after the United Nations highest court ordered the U.S. to lift some of its sanctions against Iran. They claim the sanctions violate the Treaty of Amity, which is an economic and diplomatic agreement signed during the Eisenhower administration. But Pompeo says Iran's claims under the treaty are absurd.
The choices that are being made inside of Iran today to use money to foment terror around the world, to launch ballistic missiles into airports throughout the Middle East, to arm proxy militias in Iraq and in Syria and in Lebanon. Those are dollars that the Iranian leadership is squandering.
Pompeo also says Iranian militants are a threat to Americans in Iraq. It's why he says he's removed all Americans from the consulate in Basra, where violent clashes have been ongoing. Pompeo is headed to North Korea with plans to meet with Kim Jong-un on Sunday. He's expected to lay the groundwork for a second summit between Kim and President Trump. Some State Department officials are doubtful North Korea really is working to give up their nuclear weapons, as is former UN weapons inspector David Albright.
I would argue, based on what we see, it's the same level of operation that it's been for the last couple of years. But North Korea has not been forthright about what its nuclear capabilities are.
Albright says at this pace, North Korea can still produce about 3 to 5 nuclear bombs a year in secret. Likely that's an issue Pompeo will be talking about with his counterparts this weekend. The secretary says he will be traveling to Japan first on Saturday, then to North and South Korea on Sunday, and finish off his quick trip to Asia with a stop in China on Monday. He says the focus of this trip will remain denuclearization. Lauren?
Wyatt, I remember talking with Secretary Pompeo earlier in the summer about China's negotiations with the Vatican concerning the appointment of bishops, and I interviewed him in July. Is he going to talk about that issue or other religious freedom-related topics while he is there?
It's not likely, Lauren. I talked with the State Department official about that today. He says the secretary is, of course, well aware of the various human rights violations and accusations of crackdown on churches by the Chinese government, but they would not say really specifically whether they get into detail on those topics or if they would be brought up at all during this particular trip. When I asked in more detail, they simply told me that he's going to be talking with his counterparts about bilateral topics. Lauren?
Correspondent Wyatt Goolsby reporting from the State Department. Thank you, Wyatt.